Welcome back. On this side of the tape, we'll be taking 2 giant steps forward in our freedom. The first is learning how to easily let go of fear. Fear is a sticking point for most of us. It stops us from doing the things that we really would like to get ourselves to do, because we're afraid of what will happen. It even stops us from success. And it also stops us from letting go of our problems, for fear of what will happen if we let them go. So fear is something that if we learn how to let go of easily, can make a tremendous difference in our lives. So what is the secret of letting go of fear? It's simple, but it may surprise you. Anything that we're afraid of, on some level, we're subconsciously wanting to happen. Now that might seem hard to imagine. Why would I want to have a disease? Why would I want to be audited by the IRS? Now I know that seems hard to believe, but on a subconscious level, what happens is, when we see something in our world that we don't like, we say to ourselves, I hope that doesn't happen to me, or I hope that never happens again. So say we read something in the newspaper, see something on television, something happens to someone that we care about or someone that we know, or something happens even in our own experience. What happens is, if we don't like it, if we don't want to have it, we go into resistance and we want to change it. And we say to ourselves, I hope that doesn't happen to me, or I hope that never happens again. Now the funny thing is, when you do that, the mind only creates in pictures, and it doesn't hear the word not, or never, or don't. So when you say to yourself, I don't want this to happen to me, what your mind hears is, I want this to happen to me. And it goes, okay, that's not a problem. Now remember, this is all going on below the level of consciousness. No one affirms to themselves, I want to get sick, or very few people. No one says to themselves, I want to be audited by the IRS, or I want to lose money, or I want to have an accident. But we all say to ourselves all the time, I don't want to have an accident. I don't want to be audited. I don't want to experience pain. And every time we do that, without realizing it, we're holding it in mind. So a very simple yet powerful way of letting go of fear is letting go of wanting it to happen. So let's experiment with that now. Allow yourself to focus inside and think of something that you're afraid of. And you might want to start with something small. And see what it is that you're afraid is going to happen. And notice that there might be a strong feeling of fear at the moment, or very light. It doesn't matter. Now ask yourself, could I let go of wanting this to happen? It might even make you laugh. Oh, come on, I don't want this to happen. Well, try it and see what happens inside. In fact, if you go back to that same thing, you might already notice a difference. So focus on that same thing that you're afraid of, or something else, and we'll go through a series of questions of releasing fear in this simple way. So what is it that you're afraid will happen? What is it you're not wanting to have happen? What is at the core of the fear? And could you let go of wanting it to happen? Would you? When? Now once you get over the shock of the fact that somehow you're wanting these negative things to happen, it's often very easy to let go this way, because consciously it's not something you want. So again, focus on something you're afraid of. It could be the same thing or something else. And notice what you're afraid will happen. And could you let go of wanting it to happen? Would you? When? Focus on that again, the same fear or another fear, something that you're afraid of. For instance, if you're afraid of heights, there might be your fear of falling underneath that, or there might be a not wanting to fall off a high place. So whatever it is, could you let go of wanting that to happen? Would you? When? Focus again on that same fear or something else that you're not wanting to have happen. Something that you worry about or that makes you nervous. For instance, with public speaking, there could be a fear of making a mistake or making a fool of yourself in front of the room. Whatever it is, could you let go of wanting it to happen? Would you? When? Now notice how you feel inside. Notice how easy it was to let go that way. This will really help you to cut through all the things that you're afraid of. You could even make lists of things that you're afraid of, and then let go of wanting them to happen. Also in life, if you catch yourself worrying about something or fearing it, check to see what it is that you're afraid will happen. And then ask yourself, could I let go of wanting it to happen? You'll see this will help you quickly cut through your fear. And you'll be taking things out of your subconscious that you've subconsciously been wanting to happen. And in doing that, you'll be clearing them up out of your awareness. And you'll see that will make a tremendous difference in your life, in many ways, including how you feel. So have some fun with this, experimenting with this on your own, and gradually bring your awareness into a more external focus. And then whenever you're ready to, if you haven't already, allow your eyelids to open. Now you may want to take a break to work with this a little bit, or you may want to just go on to the next section of this tape. Turn to the page in your workbook that's titled The Three Aspects of Mind. The work we've been doing so far in the class, this presentation will really help put it in perspective. Once you understand why something works, sometimes it gives it a whole new meaning, a whole greater depth and breadth of understanding. Now, this is talking about the three aspects of mind, not the three aspects of you. Most of us get confused and we think we are our minds, and we're not. In fact, on this diagram, just like a lot of the other diagrams, your unlimited potential is represented by this infinity sign, and it's just behind the mind. And that's what we tap into every time we use the method. We not only are using the mind to undo itself, but we're also untapping our unlimited potential. The three aspects of mind are the I sense. That's our sense of who we are. I hail, or I whatever your name is. Our sense of discrimination. It's like the lens that we view the world through. And the programs aspect, or the sensing, recording, replaying aspect of mind. So how it works is, I, through my discriminator, sense what's going on in the world. And our senses are like our sensors. The sight, smell, touch, feeling, hearing, all our senses are like sensors, relaying information back through the lens of the discriminator, or our sense of discrimination, to me. And based on the information that I get back from my senses, through my sense of discrimination, I make decisions about what to do in life or how to handle the world. Now, what do you think would happen if our sense of discrimination gets shut down? Obviously, if our sense of discrimination gets shut down, we're not going to get accurate information. And unfortunately, this happens to us quite a bit. Now, there is a whole host of things that shut down our sense of discrimination. I'll give you just a few of the examples. And I invite you to explore that on your own. Notice what it is that makes you find it difficult to think straight, or to see clearly, or feels like it starts to block information from getting through. But I'll give you just a few of them. One of them is very simple. Bright lights. Why is it that people turn off their brights when someone's coming down the highway at night? It's because that bright light is blinding, and then it could actually cause an accident because you can't see anymore, and here you are in this dark situation moving in the car, and the bright light has closed down your sense of discrimination because you're trying to block it out, and then you're not seeing clearly what's going on in your environment. Another example is even loud noises. If you're in loud noises for a while, your hearing shuts down. Those of you who've ever been to a really loud rock concert know what I mean. You go to the concert and then you go out into the world and you can't hear anything anyone's saying. They have to shout for you to hear them. Drugs and alcohol is another example of things that shut down our sense of discrimination. And that's why we encourage you not to use drugs and alcohol when you're using the method, or especially when you're learning it. I'm not saying you should never ever use drugs or alcohol again. In our society, recreational drinking is part of society. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. It does make it more difficult to see things clearly, especially after you've had a few drinks. And that's why you're not allowed to drink and drive, because you could, again, cause an accident in your car because you're not seeing clearly anymore. Your senses aren't working, your sense of coordination stops working, everything gets out of kilter. Well, there's one thing, though, that more than anything else shuts down your discrimination, and that's your emotions. To the intensity, to that degree, it shuts down your ability to really see what's actually happening in your environment. What the method does is it helps you to let go of those emotions that are blocking your sense of discrimination so that in life. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by emotions shutting down discrimination. First of all, if you look into your own experience, I think you'll see many times where you were upset or bothered by something and therefore didn't do something that was correct, or you did something that you later regretted. I see a lot of you nodding heads. Yeah, you can remember that. It's easy. Another example is, I know of someone who was grieving and they drank a cup of hot coffee, and it wasn't until the next day that they even realized they had burnt their mouths. You've heard the expression blind rage? Sometimes you get so upset with someone that you just go on automatic. And there was another person that I know of who actually got really upset with someone, and all of a sudden they saw this red haze in front of their eyes, and they didn't remember anything that happened after that until after someone pulled them off the person who they were beating on. Again, when the emotion comes up strong enough, it shuts down your discrimination, and then when there's no discrimination, you go on automatic. The programs that you have in your mind take over, and you have no sense of separation from them. An example of that is even in our language. Very often when we're experiencing an emotion, we don't say, I feel angry, for instance. You say, I'm angry. To some degree, you think you are that emotion. And to the degree that you identify with that emotion, to that degree the emotion is running you. You're not running it. One of the things we do with the method is we start out by helping us discriminate a little more by recognizing, wait a minute, I'm not angry, I'm feeling angry. As soon as you've recognized that you're feeling angry, your sense of discrimination opens up a little more. And then a little further sense of discrimination, you go, well, is that a feeling of wanting approval, control, security, or separation? And you recognize, oh, in this case, it's wanting control. Your discrimination opens up even further. And then you ask yourself the releasing questions. Could I let it go? And when you let it go, in the release of the emotion, your discrimination opens up further. Now, how did this all get started? Especially this automatic sense. Our programs were originally put in based on what we thought would be pro-survival. Things like heartbeat, heartbeat. You didn't want to have to think that all day long. You wouldn't have time to do anything else. But what happened is this has gotten overused. We've put way more into our program bank than we should have. And that's why we end up doing all these crazy things or do things that we later regret. And I'll give you just a story that illustrates that. When you were young, you met a tall, gray-haired man,
and he was kind of abusive when you were very young. And you may have made a decision. Tall, gray-haired men are dangerous. And what you do is you record that information and you put it into your subconscious. You're always on guard from then on to make sure you're protecting yourself from tall, gray-haired men. And you do your best to do that. But you forget you've done that because you don't remember that you told yourself, for instance, to breathe or to have your heart beat. But you forget all these other programs too, and then they just go on automatic. So say 20 years later you're in a job interview. The job interview is going great. It's the perfect position. It's the right next step for you. And it's a gray-haired man, but he's behind a desk. He's your height. Everything's okay. Then he says, well, you say, I like the job. He says, I'd like to hire you. And he stands up because he wants to show you around the plant. And all of a sudden, he's a lot taller than you. And you get this funny feeling in the pit of your stomach. And then you start having all these thoughts like, well, I'm not sure this job is right for me. Maybe I left something on the stove burning. And you do whatever you can to get out of there. And you may be running away from the exact perfect opportunity that's right for you in your life. We make decisions based on past information that has nothing to do with the present. What we'll be doing with the method, and what we have been doing with the method, is we've been using this sense of discrimination to free ourselves so that we can really function better in life. We've been taking ourselves off automatic. Because this sensing, recording, replaying aspect of mind is also responsible for our autonomic functions, when this gets overloaded, that's why disease happens. The computer is so loaded up with all this protecting ourselves from all these imagined threats that aren't even real, and everything else that we've relegated to our subconscious, that all our systems in our body, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the nervous system, all the different systems start to break down because they're not getting the correct information anymore. So I think you can get a sense of how important it is to use the method, and this diagram helps really put it in perspective. As you release, you're increasing your ability to, one, be effective in life because you're seeing more accurately what's really going on, and two, it's freeing you from all this excess baggage that's making you act in ways that you later regret and is also causing disease. So I highly encourage you to spend some time pondering this material. You might want to listen to this tape several times. If you really can get this and start looking for instance, what it is that makes your discriminator close in life, you'll be able to adjust your life accordingly so that you can avoid those things that are causing you to go on automatic. As you release your feelings and the underlying wants or the programs that are motivating the feeling, you're freeing yourself up to just be here now in this moment and respond accordingly from a place of discrimination, a place of knowing.